I think it's worth asking, why do people leave businesses? And I have seen anyway, I'd be interested to hear if you have seen this, but my experience has been most employees leave a business not because they got a better offer. They leave a business because the current business didn't care enough and plan enough for them in a way that helps them grow and bring personal and business value, and also didn't chart a path to help them make more money. Why do we work for a living, Vincent? We have to work. Whether we work for ourselves or work for somebody else, we have to go to work. We have to make money. And so employees are in the same boat. And usually, if you're a business that wants great people, especially great people, they want to bring value, they want to do great work, and they want to be promoted and make more money and have a better title. Let's be honest. Those three things I have seen combat employment churn is number one, document what you believe and what you value, and then live it out. And if you're able to do that, then you're on a course for being a professional, having integrity, and probably having a good EQ in your org, empathy.
It's always nice when LinkedIn turns into meaningful conversations. I'm here with Garrett today, ready to join the entrepreneurship community here at That Entrepreneur Show. He is the founder and chief clarity officer over at Clarity Ops. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's learned how to generate over 50 million in revenue. So we'll talk about that, along with many other cool and important areas, the QuadCore Management System, scaling businesses, leadership transformation, and so much more. Garrett, thank you for waking up over in San Diego to join me here around lunchtime in St. Petersburg.
Yeah, you happy to be here, Vincent. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
I can't wait to dive into all of this a bit more. But everyone, if this is show one for you or our returning guests, thank you so much for joining the show. We appreciate you taking time out of your day, and we hope today's journey provides you with more value, just like the rest of the shows. Check them out in the show directory after today's show. But for today, Garrett, 25 years of experience in optimizing and scaling businesses. He focuses on creating operational frameworks to improve efficiency, reduce costs, and enhance team performance. He helps you take action through actionable steps. And I love that we're often overloaded with information and then still left in the same predicament. How do we start? Where do we start? I'd love to kick it off. When did you first realize entrepreneurship was the route for you?
Wow, what a question. Out of the gate.
We got to go back in time to get to where you are today.
My journey was totally accidental. Went to college, got a corporate job. That was my path. And about two tours of duty, one with a company called Gallo Wine, another with a company out of Boston in your neck of the woods, or at least that side of the country. And I fell out of love with that work that I was doing. All I knew is I didn't want to work for somebody else. And I knew I wanted to do something on my own, but I didn't know what that was. And cashed in my 401k. and,
And went all in.
And the journey began, yeah, a whole 13 grand. Yeah.
It's nice to have something like just a saved up before you go into entrepreneurship. Of course, for me, I left corporate as well. I
Oh,
realized there was just a different way to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and outside corporate, after entrepreneurship, I had to be in hospitality a bit to make ends meet. The
Okay.
Gallo Wine University I had to complete over when I was at Ocean Prime.
Yeah, you totally get it.
Yeah, I get it. And it's a lot more to wine than I ever knew. And that it's not even my particular interest, but it was definitely
Yeah.
cool to learn because there's so much now how you're selling your plates, go into how you're describing that along with the food. What got you into that company?
It's a crazy story. Again, totally accidental. When I graduated college, I moved back to San Diego and was just helping a buddy with his company. He was doing like direct sales. And so I was on my way to a sales call. Turned out, turned left and got sideswiped by oncoming traffic, totaled my car. I had no car. And so I was desperate. I called a friend in LA and I said, do you know anybody that's hiring that gives you a car when they hire you? And she's like, yeah, my uncle hires at Gallo Wine. I'm pretty sure they give you like a truck or something. I was like, can you set up an interview for me? And so the next day I drove to LA, took the interview, or got a ride to LA, took the interview, and there it was. I like had no intention of pursuing Gallo. It was one of those weird,
Yeah.
serendipitous scenarios. And it
Yeah.
turns out Gallo at least then had the best sales training program in the country. Like top notch. All you do is for the first month, you learn how to sell. That's all you do.
So
It's
now you
unbelievable.
you carried that over into your entrepreneurship, I'm sure, where now
Yeah,
you have one of the most valuable skill sets, learning sales. I
so
out of
important.
college didn't want to go into sales, had no interest, and then
Okay.
become an entrepreneur and you realize now you're selling yourself. You're selling
Oh
what
my
you do.
gosh.
So everything is sales. So now reading books, learning from people like you on the show.
Yeah,
Now, a long way
100%.
from the Gallo wine days. Let's show
Yeah.
some love to what you're working on right now.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the adjective you chose because it really has been a breath of fresh air the last couple of years to transition into this new season. I started a company called Clarity Ops, and that was birthed out of building businesses for 25 years and literally bushwhacking. Accidental entrepreneur, I didn't know what I was getting into. You really don't.
No
You
idea.
read books about it, people can talk about it, but until you're in the coffers, until you're in the engine room,
Yep.
you don't get it. And as it turns out, two of the businesses I built were excruciatingly difficult to scale. Then I didn't even know there was such a word. And so I had to solve problems that nobody in my network that I knew of was solving. Over years, I built frameworks, tools, techniques to solve those problems. And then coming up about 5 years ago, I was like, wow, there's a lot of businesses in the marketplace, a lot struggling with the rails of the business. I think Carnegie referred to it as the engine of success, which is essentially the ops. Most businesses focus on revenue and sales, and they forget about the engine that makes it all work and win. That motivated me to think long and hard about what's my next tour. And I'm really excited about taking these tools and empowering businesses to build infrastructure. And the big differentiator there, Vincent, is to do it in a fast, pre-built, easy way. Businesses never have, and they still don't have time to slow down.
No, we don't. And thank you for sharing all that. I'd now like to shift gears into seeing if there were any commonalities between building three international businesses that you all generated over 50 million in revenue. What are the tips you can offer from those experiences?
I've broken it down theoretically into three buckets. Every business needs people, even in this new gen of AI. Every business needs process, and every business needs performance. And if you can architect those three buckets and integrate them cross functionally successfully, then, and assuming you have product market fit,
Of course.
chances are you'll win.
Thank you for sharing that. And out of those three international businesses, where in the world did those businesses take you? Where did you get to see?
Oh my gosh. So, spent a fair amount of time in Europe, fair amount of time in India, and a little bit of time in Indonesia.
You know, I'm going to ask another question now. Which of those places did you have the best time in?
Wow.
Loaded question.
Yeah, I think India.
Okay.
I think India. I just hadn't come across a culture that was so kind, very, very, very kind. And that was pretty heartwarming, actually.
Probably a nice change of pace from back in America, where, of course, there are great people, but
Yeah,
overall, present day after COVID, strangers,
right.
it's a lot
Yeah,
different. It's a lot different. Will
yeah.
you go back, you think?
Maybe. We'll see. Yeah.
That's exciting. We'll
I know
see.
COVID shut a lot of all that travel down, and it's been pretty mellow since.
Absolutely. Now, let's switch up and go back to the story here, the QuadCore Management System. What can
Yeah,
you tell us about it?
sure. I built that because chief sinner, just when it comes to building business and building up great leaders, what I did and what I think a lot of leaders do is we're driven, we're ambitious to grow,
Mhm.
and we hooked into that old adage, find great people and set them free. which, by the way, I think is one of the biggest lies on the planet when it comes to driving and winning in business. To maybe another show, Vincent. But what we do is we find great people and we realize they're great performers and they execute great. And we load them up and we assume they're superheroes. And we ask them to do more than they are mentally, physically capable. And then that cascades down into the rest of the org as the top treats their leaders that way, their management leaders that way. That cascades all the way down. And so I realized a business, starting with me, needed to treat the business the way computers treat themselves. They have load balancing mechanisms and they delegate typically by design very efficiently and very well their resource allocations. QuadCore Management System basically says, listen, there's really, in my opinion, four types of managers. There's strategic managers, there's maintenance and support managers,
Okay.
there's process focused managers, and there's project managers. And if a business wants to maximize its strength, its sturdiness, its speed, its quality, QuadCore helps a business segment those for maximum strength and maximum speed. And then that way, each manager has hyper focus on that critical role as relates to one of those four types.
I love the analogy with comparing it to a computer. I think that's really awesome. I have not heard that. So thank you for bringing that to the show.
Yeah.
Next, we know you're a serial entrepreneur. Are we locked in on this right now, or do you already have your next baby brewing?
No, I have a 2-year-old. So I have a 2-year-old, so I have a ways to go. Listen, I think that if by God's grace, if I had it my way, this will take me into the horizon. It's that fun and it's that fulfilling.
So you're thinking this may be the end of the entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I got another 20, 25 years in me, and this thing is big enough that wave will ride. And frankly, there's still kind of the wild, wild west. When you get into strategic consulting, my experience has been most firms, and many of them do it well, focus on the what. They're really good at bringing a business strategic plans, strategic blueprints that help business leaders and owners see the macro. What most consulting agencies don't want to touch is the how. They don't want to architect engines. They don't want to build stuff to make the what work. It turns out I'm a weirdo like that. I really actually get fulfillment out of it, especially because of the fruit it produces. So I think there's a lot of room in the marketplace to make a dent in that stat. 9 out of 10 businesses fail. And that's part of my mission is to reduce that stat.
Well, part of what you do in efforts I know to reduce that stat is build a culture of accountability within teams without falling into the trap of micromanagement.
Yeah.
Teach us. Let's
Yeah.
learn some tips because I'm a newer boss. My first like full-time hire with my VA was about 2 years ago now. So there's
Okay.
still a lot of learning lessons I've had. Now I've let go of a lot more. We're up to a team of 11. So
Okay.
I'm still not all full-time, of course, but I'm still looking to learn as much as I can to be a more effective leader.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think the topic is apropos for this current season and time. I mean, if you and I we talked about LinkedIn, any given day, go on LinkedIn for more than 5 minutes and you will see posts about the witch hunt after managers that micromanage. It is still a thing. It has been for a long time. I think my opinion is there are two types of micromanagers. There are your micromanagers that are just control freaks by nature, and for whatever reason, the culture permits it, and so they get away with it. And then there's another kind of micromanager, which I call the accidental micromanager. And the accidental micromanager is in that seat because they're typically trying to grasp and frantically control all of the disorder and all of the chaos in the org. And I tend to think, and I've seen this over the years and now at Clarity Ops, that tends to be the primary persona. That is mostly the avatar. Most managing leaders most of them are not out to just control everybody. Usually, mostly they're fighting fires because the business is disorganized, it's inefficient, and there are plans that are missing. And so, what's the old adage? You cannot manage what you cannot measure. If you're incapable of controlling the things you're responsible for, right? Businesses pay managing leaders to be responsible for the goals and ultimately the output, which often is related to sales and revenue. If you don't have control mechanisms and governance around how to sustain that and maintain it, what do? You freak out and you control everybody. I think that is the nature of those are the two avatars, and I think primarily it's the latter. If a business is interested in how do you make that go away, I think there are two primary plays. Number one, define core values that don't permit it. Number two, architect order to eliminate the chaos so that you can let the governance control the business and not people. And that way, when you come together and if people start falling short, you don't point at the person, you point at the governance. And together you can point at this third party, this third thing called process or architecture and say, okay, those were the instructions that we are supposed to follow. How do we get back to that? It's such a lovely model, especially when it comes to the cultural benefits of having those things in place.
That was very well said. Thank you for sharing that, everyone. I hope you got a lot of value out of that and even resonating with it. My VA has over time transitioned to also a project manager as the
Oh, okay.
podcast production has grown. So now,
Sure.
rather me getting involved, like you're saying, in every step, everything's documented. I'm on tape giving instructions now, like video. So you can go on my private YouTube channel and see all of the company trainings. It's
That's
night and
perfect,
day.
Jason.
Well, it's through advice like you're giving today. I didn't invent any of this stuff. I learned it from other people who are
Yeah.
doing great things. One of my many goals for this show over the 5 years is to let everyone know they're not alone in this journey. There's
Mm,
no blueprint. We're going to
mm.
learn and fail or learn our lesson and then keep it moving. Some other areas I want to talk about now before we find out which entrepreneur he would choose to sit down with if he had his choice. Employee retention and churn. You've seen some strategies that worked, some that haven't. Let's
Yeah.
talk about some of the ones that have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are probably three things. If a business gets these right, they will see a positive decline in the churn of their employees. And I think it's worth asking, why do people leave businesses? I have seen anyway. I'd be interested to hear if you have seen this, but my experience has been most employees leave a business not because they got a better offer. They leave a business because the current business didn't care enough and plan enough for them in a way that helps them grow and bring personal and business value, and also didn't chart a path to help them make more money. Why do we work for a living, Vincent? We have to work. Whether we work for ourselves or work for somebody else, we have to go to work. We have to make money. And so employees are in the same boat. And usually, if you're a business that wants great people, especially great people, they want to bring value, they want to do great work, and they want to be promoted and make more money and have a better title. Let's be honest. Those three things I have seen combat employment churn is number one, document what you believe and what you value, and then live it out. And if you're able to do that, then you're on a course for being professional, having integrity, and probably having a good EQ in your org, empathy. The other is have employee agreements. A lot of businesses, most businesses are small businesses, and they don't think through an employment handbook that manages the expectations of the employee, both pre-employment and all the way through exit. And it's amazing what happens when the business just invests in planning these things out, especially a handbook, an employee guideline, how much security and solace that gives people because they're not in the dark. And then lastly, I'd say that the other big needle mover is a career path for an employee to show up on day one as they go through on-ramping to be told, hey, here's what we believe. Here are probably all of the answers to your questions about employment here at our business. And by the way, over the next 5 years, here's a path that you could take and that here are the things you would need to do to earn 20, 30, 40, 50% more than what you're currently earning and to how to get a better title. I was just at Chipotle the other day. Walking in, they had a new poster up in their window and it said, join us and we'll put you on a path to earn $100,000 in the next 4 years. I'm like, I've never seen that. It's such a great model. Like immediately, they have a path inside that can help you get there if you want it. those would be the three buckets, Vincent, that I'd recommend to combat churn.
You crushed it. I have to show you love to another great person in this category. One of my book coaching clients turned friend, Jerry, wrote The Destination Employer on attracting and retaining recruiting employees. Much overlap there.
Wow.
I might have to connect you two. I think you could have a great conversation. Before I let him go, everyone, Garrett, it's time for a question that started out with the show. It disappeared for a little bit. It's come back because I like to hear unique answers. If you
Sure.
could choose any entrepreneur throughout history, dead or alive, to have a
Mhm.
conversation with at any point of your entrepreneurial journey, it doesn't have to be today when you're on this next chapter, but it can.
Yeah.
Who's the top pick?
Oh, there's so many, dude. There's so many. But I think I would go with Bill Campbell.
Let's talk about
He,
it.
yeah, Bill Campbell from the Trillion Dollar Coach. We know that he was the go-to guy for some of the, the big players out there that from Microsoft, Apple, et cetera, Google. And I would go to him because in reading that book, that was the first time I heard some very inspiring brass tack positions as a leader. Like one of his positions was, listen, you have to earn being a leader. People do not naturally follow you just because you have a title. We've heard that before. But then he goes on to say, great leaders must have first been great managers. They must have first demonstrated that they can lead by example. They must first have earned the respect of the people that follow them, that they're trustworthy, dependable, faithful, and timely, that they do the basics like they do what they promise they will do. They're consistent.
Hmm.
They have a strong and good plan by design and they operate accordingly. And he goes on to say that when you have managers that put in the reps, that do the hard work to operate this way, people will naturally follow them because that's a great leader.
Yes.
And I'd love to spend a few hours with that guy and pick his brain. He also was, in terms of his personality, he was one of the most caring, loving cats that all of these guys had ever worked with. But he also had the other side, which was no BS. Like if we're in business together, we're here to win. We're not here just to exist. So he had this
Mm.
really nice balance of being a pro, having a ton of empathy and really cared for people, but also he was all about execution and ensuring that everybody is accountable to do what they were hired to do.
Oh
Freaking
my
love it.
goodness. I love the answer and I love why. Thank you for all the value you brought towards our community today. I had a great time further getting to know you. Where can we find you online? Where can we say hello?
I'm on LinkedIn. Garrett Delph is the handle, and website is clarityops.co.
Everyone, check out that website to learn more. Message him or add him on LinkedIn. He's a great guy to have in your network. And the show is at That Entrepreneur Show on all podcast platforms. Remember to subscribe if you enjoyed today's show. This show is brought to you by Coming Alive Podcast Production. Head to comingalivepodcastproduction.com to get your show off the ground. And today we're signing off from across the country, from St. Petersburg over to San Diego. Thank you for a great conversation.
Thanks so much, Vincent. Really appreciate being here.
Thanks for coming on.